Are your parents planning to give you real property? Will the property form part of the conjugal property in case the heir is married?
It's normal for our parents to give us their properties. Usually, parents like transferring their properties to their kids when they are already old, and usually the children are already married.
And so what usually happens here is itong lupa na to para kay kuya, ito kay ate, itong pinakamaganda kay bunso. but what if there's only one property to give away among many heirs or many kids, and all of them are already married, they have spouses? Owners na rin ba yung spouses?
Jackpot.
Oh. So this is exactly the question of our reader V. Hi V. Hi. And she writes, Attorney, my father intends to assign my sister and I as heirs of a land he owns. However, I'm already married. Will it become a conjugal property? Would there be any conflict if my spouse and I decide to put up a structure on the land? Thank you.
But before that, Attorney Ramon, we would like to give a shout out to one of our followers, Jane Teruel,
Hi,
who
Jane.
said, I am always looking forward to every episode of Legal Guide PH because it is very informative and very helpful. That is why I am always sharing their episodes because I know that this will also be helpful to others. God bless.
Oh,
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Jane.
much, Jane.
Bless you too. Please keep sharing. And just to let you know, we seem to provide helpful content to you guys because our show is based on questions from followers like you. So if you want to submit a question, just go to our website and click the submit topic button. Now let's get on with the show.
This video is brought to you by Transferring Land in the Philippines, a mini workshop that teaches Filipinos the basic modes of transferring land and real properties in the Philippines. It provides the pros and cons of each mode, as well as the steps and procedures so that you eliminate your confusion and successfully navigate the whole process. Transfer with confidence. Transfer without fixers. Go to info.legalguide.ph/land to learn more.
Welcome to Legal Guide Philippines, where we simplify the law to help you make better choices. I'm Attorney Erwin Zagala, and I'm with my partner,
Attorney Ramon Ramirez.
So today, we're talking about conjugal properties and how these relate to properties donated by parents or maybe kamag-anaks.
Great.
So, what's the breakdown, Attorney Ramon?
So, okay, let's talk about what's happening here. What is V asking? V is asking. So the situation is, her dad wants to give the parents. Sabi niya to assign. So we don't know what that means. Maybe in a will, but ang dating sa akin is by virtue of ipamimigay niya.
Parang donation.
Parang donation. So
Okay.
buhay pa si dad, ibibigay niya yung property niya ngayon sa kanyang dalawang anak.
So from dad, papunta din sa dalawang anak.
Yes.
Okay,
oo.
okay.
And buhay pa si dad, no?
Yes.
Buhay pa si dad. So ang tanong ni V, okay, kasal na ako.
Okay.
Okay, meron akong mister. Ibig sabihin ba pag binigay sa amin yung property sa amin ng kapatid ko, kasama na rin si mister kasi 'di ba there's the concept ng conjugal property, 'di ba?
What's yours is mine.
Yes,
And
what's mine is yours.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So it's a very, very valid question. And I think she also followed up with a question wherein, what if gusto kong magpatayo ng, siguro kami ni hubby, no? We want, meron kaming gustong ipatayo dun sa property na ibibigay ni Airpods.
Magkaka-issue ba yun?
Magkaka-issue ba yun? So that is the context of what V is asking.
Magkaka-issue with regard to other kamag-anaks or yung kapatid
Possibly.
siguro?
Or yung maybe even yung kapatid.
Oo.
And we will discuss that today.
Okay.
All right, so before we go into before we answer yung question ni Ate V, we'd like to talk about yung property regimes kasi we always bandy about this term, 'di ba? Yung conjugal property, 'di ba? Oh, conjugal 'yan.
Mhm.
Uy, yung kotse na yan, conjugal 'yan. Akin din 'yan, 'di ba?
Yung utang na yan, conjugal. Hindi ko naririnig yun.
Hindi na. Usually it's yung assets, no?
Oo.
Hindi yung liability. All right, so let's talk about what we call property regimes. Okay, ano ba yung property regimes? This is the kabuuan ng relasyon ng mag-asawa in terms of their properties. Okay, habang mag-asawa sila.
The rules of the game.
Yes. Okay, so ano ba talaga? Let's break it down. No? So under our family code, the first one that we will talk about is the property regime called Absolute Community of Property.
Or
ACP.
Yan.
All right. So it's what you call absolute community of property. So, ano ba siya? So, basically, it consists of all the property owned by the spouses at the time of the celebration of marriage, or acquired thereafter. So, what does this mean? So, si lalaki, si babae, ikakasal sila, di ba?
And may parang picture ako na pwedeng ibigay dyan.
Ano?
Bago ikasal, isipin mo may lamesa sa harap.
Okay,
nila.
sige.
And then kumbaga, yung assets, isipin
Labasan
mo na
na.
sa bulsa. Labasan sa bulsa.
ilagay sa-
Lahat.
ilagay sa lamesa. Okay.
Lahat ng nandyan sa lamesa, divide in, ACP yan.
ACP
Yeah,
yan.
ACP
Okay,
yan.
so, once kinasal sila, kung ano yung kay lalaki, kay babae. And kung ano yung kay babae, kay lalaki.
Pero, kasama rin dun, yung mga idadagdag pa.
Yes.
May na-acquire. So, dagdag ka lang ng dagdag sa
Kasi
lamesa.
kasal na sila eh. So anything na idagdag, like kung wari, several years from now, and nangyayari to, like after ikasal na ni guy tsaka ni girl, later on, bibili sila ng property. Pwedeng bumili sila ng kotse or whatever. No? So,
dagdag yun sa lamesa.
dagdag yun sa properties nila sa lamesa. Okay? So, that is what we call the absolute community of property.
And they both own.
Yeah,
diba?
They both own it. So, hindi pwedeng, so even if ang nagtatrabaho lang in the family is, kumare, si babae, gawin natin si babae, usually si lalaki, no? In this scenario, si babae lang. And si babae, si wife, she bought let's say, a big piece of land. Okay? It doesn't mean, and she used yung sweldo niya. Diba? Yung sweldo niya to buy that. So she can, and then she says, well, akong bumili niyan with my own money, ako naman ang naghahanap buhay dito, I should, akin lang to. O hindi ganon under the ACP or the absolute community of property. So even if galing yun exclusively from sweldo ni Mrs.
Ang sasagot sa kanya ng hobby niya, yun ang akala mo.
Yes, because we have what you call the ACP or the absolute community of property, and this is our property regime. So what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. Even actually yung sweldo, no? So we have that, we always joke around about yung mga mister binibigay na yung
ATM.
ATM kay may Mrs. no. It doesn't mean that si Mrs. ang may-ari nun. It's just that we acknowledge, no? So sa mga mister, they acknowledge that
there's legal interest.
Yeah. And the concept of ACP, 'di ba? Kasi darling, sa'yo na tong ATM natin kasi atin naman yan kahit ako ang nagtatrabaho.
Ang sweet.
Ayun. So, guys, so that is the concept of the absolute community of property. Okay? So, again, to recap, it is the stuff na nasa lamesa at the time na kinasal. Okay?
Very important yun. At the time na kinasal.
At the time na kinasal. So, everything that you bring into the marriage, sa kanya yan. Sa inyo yan. Sa inyong dalawa yan. And anything that you acquire later on, whether or not used by, by sweldo or whatever ng isang tao lang, it's all both sa inyo.
On the table.
Yes. All right. So, that's absolute community of property. Now, meron din tayong tinatawag another kind of property regime. And again, when we say property regime, this is the relationship of the property relationship between spouses.
Rules of the game.
Rules of the game between spouses. Yan. So, meron din tayong tinatawag na conjugal partnership of gains.
Otherwise known as CPG.
Yan. Okay, well, that's
parang nabalik ako sa law school. Yan yung mga nasa notes natin.
Sa notes natin. That's what we called it when we were kids. When we were in law school. All right. So, ano naman tong concept ng CPG? No? To differentiate it from ACP, here naman, the spouses place in a common fund yung proceeds lang nila of their proceeds, products, or fruits of or income from their separate properties. So kanila pa rin yung separate properties nila, 'di ba? Pag doon sa lamesa, hindi necessarily what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, pero pag yung proceeds, products, fruits, and income from yung mga separate properties nila, ay kanila.
I think ang mas magandang visual picture dito, Attorney Ramon, tatlo naman yung lamesa.
Okay. Paano yung tatlong lamesa?
So, may lamesa si husband, may lamesa si wife, and then may lamesa para sa proceeds.
Yan. Alright.
So, yung nandito sa lamesang to, akin lang to.
Yung nandito sa lamesang to, kay Mrs. lang.
Oo. Saan sila naghahati? Doon sa
pangatlo.
Sa fruits na nakukuha galing doon sa lamesa nila na binabagsak doon sa pangatlong lamesa. Kaya nga, conjugal partnership of gains.
Yan. So, all property acquired during the marriage are also considered part of the CPG.
Third lamesa yun.
Yes,
Okay.
oo, okay. So those are the general rules, no? So this is so what do we have now? ACP, CPG, or a conjugal partnership of gains. And then meron naman din tayong tinatawag na pangatlong klase ng property regime,
Mhm.
and it's what you call the complete separation of property.
Ay, ito, hulaan ko ilan ang lamesa rito.
Ilan, Attorney Erwin?
Malamang dalawa lang.
Dalawa lang yan.
Dalawa lang
Okay,
yan.
ano bang ibig sabihin ng complete separation of property? Basically, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, no? So,
Otherwise known as KKB.
KKB. And I know of a lot of spouses who have complete separation of property, but ang property regime nila is actually ACP. Di ba?
Akala mo lang yun.
Di ba? Parang a lot, I think in our generation, maraming ganun. Of course, lalo na when two spouses, they work or they each have their own businesses, di ba? Akin, what's mine is mine, di ba? Pero sa totoo lang, ACP sila. Alright, so,
So pag kumakain ng restaurant,
Oh.
ano yan? Oh, ano yung kinain mo? Steak?
oh, ikaw magbayad niyan. Oh. Me, separate bills.
Pag-asawa, separate bill.
Or siguro, salitan sila na manlilibre.
Pwede.
rin. Right. Okay. So, under the separation of property or complete separation of property regime, each spouse shall own, dispose of, possess, administer, and enjoy his or her separate estate without need of consent of the other.
Walang paalam.
Walang paalam
Kasi
yan.
nga separate.
Separate eh.
Gusto kong bumiling kotse eh.
Ayun. Buti nga kung kotse eh. Kung gusto kong bumili ng motor and all its accessories, yan. Issue yan sa mga ibang mag-asawa, no? Ayaw ng mga misis na nagbo-motor.
Parang gusto ko to ah.
Dapat ginawa mo before kung yan ang gusto mo, attorney. Alright. So, okay. With respect to complete separation of property, the law provides that separation of property must be provided for in a marriage settlement executed by the future spouses.
May requirement.
Yes.
Alright.
Okay. So, guys, now we're introducing the concept of a marriage settlement. Ano ba ang marriage settlement, Attorney Erwin?
Tingin ko may isa pang pangalan yan.
Ano yan?
Starts with a P.
P.
Yeah.
And,
Tapos, 2 syllables.
P.
Ano
Yan. Ano
sa
yun?
tingin niya?
It's prenup or prenuptial agreement. Yan.
Mm.
But under our law, we don't call it that. We call it marriage settlement. But usually we call it the prenup or the prenuptial agreement. Yan. Ano ba yung prenup, Attorney Erwin?
Prenup is a marriage settlement.
Yes. So basically, it's a contract, no? It's a contract between spouses, and basically doon nila pag-uusapan ano bang natin? Ano bang property regime natin?
Yes.
Okay? Will it be complete separation of property?
ACP?
Pwede bang ACP or CPG ba tayo?
Mamili ka.
Or anything in between, no? So you have ACP on the one side, na yun yung extreme na talagang what's mine is yours is mine. And then on the other side, extreme naman na complete separation of property. 'Di ba? Medyo gitna or medyo pa dito is yung CPG.
Mm-hmm.
But in a marriage settlement or in a prenup, you can actually have a wide variety of things, no?
And it tends to be very technical. That's why we recommend that you consult a legal team for this.
Yes,
in case you want to execute this, you might trip up kasi maraming technicalities. And Attorney Ramon, why don't we tell them about the biggest technicality there, the timing?
Yes. Okay. Now, when it comes to marriage settlements, okay, so when we say marriage settlements, ito yung pinag-uusapan nyo kung ano yung property regime. It's very important under our law that this is executed or nagpirmahan kayo and it's notarized prior to the marriage.
What's the word?
Prior to celebration of the marriage. So, I've actually experienced some prenuptial agreements na hours away yung kasalan.
Hindi magka-settlement.
Oo, nagpipirmahan pa sila, no? So, in that case, valid yung ating prenup, yung marriage settlement or yung prenuptial agreement. Now,
kahit 1 second before yan.
Yes.
Before pa rin yan.
But what happens if it's after, Attorney Erwin?
And in which case, the law does not permit that.
Yes.
Wala po yan.
Yeah.
No effect.
So, kailangan, guys, again, if you're going to get into a marriage settlement, please execute it before your celebration of your marriage, bago kayo magkasalan. Okay? Now, what if hindi nagkaroon ng marriage settlement, Attorney Erwin? Anong tingin mong
Oo
mangyayari?
nga, no? Hindi naman pwedeng wala.
Yeah,
diba?
and actually, I would say in the Philippines, hindi ganun kauso yung marriage settlement or yung mga prenup.
Oo.
Diba?
Ano ngayon yung default?
Yes.
Yan.
So, the default under our law is the one that we talked about earlier, the absolute community of property.
Bagsakan tayo sa isang lamesa.
Yes,
Yan.
and share tayo lahat dyan. No? So, if you did not execute a marriage settlement prior to your marriage, then the default is the ACP regime. Okay, so our family code will lay there yung lahat ng rules when it comes to the absolute community of property. No, so it's several rules. It's not this is not the show for that. But yun, just be aware na ganun yun, na wala kayong in-execute, share kayo sa lahat. Right? So if that's not what you want, or that's not what your family wants, minsan kasi you own you
family
have
corporation.
Yeah, you have shares
or
in a family
business.
corporation or family business na ayaw ng family mo na ibigay ng basta to the spouses. Oh.
What's the next step? Talk to a lawyer.
Yes, please. Oo.
You need help in drafting a prenup. Wag po ninyo sarilihin yan. It's too technical for
Yeah.
non-legally trained people.
And what I've been seeing, correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Aaron, more often than it's becoming mas accepted yung pag-execute
lang.
ng marriage
Dapat
settlements.
lang.
No? Because before, there was this concept na, magpirmahan tayo ng prenup or marriage settlement.
Bakit? Hindi mo ba ako mahal?
Wala ka bang tiwala sa akin?
Ano tingin mo? Ipinapakasal lang kita dahil sa
Pera?
pera?
So, guys, that a lot of couples now are starting to think more about their marriage settlements because maybe for practicality reasons.
Praktikalan na ngayon.
Yeah, and sentimentality, medyo outmoded na.
And if you need more clarification, a legal team would be happy to explain the intricacies for you. Hindi siya dahil walang tiwala sa isa't isa. It's just a way of creating order before magkagulo pa or magkaroon ng mga questions arising from paano ba yung treatment sa isang property.
Right.
Preemptive.
Okay, great. So next, we'll be talking about ano naman yung hindi kasama sa absolute community of property. Or
May
let's say,
mga exclusions pa.
yes.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, now let's talk about ano naman yung not included in the property regimes. No? So for ano yung una nating property regime that we talked about?
ACP.
ACP, or the absolute community of property. Now, so ano yung general rule? Everything that's on the table belongs to the spouses.
Hati kayo dyan.
Except. Ano yung mga except? Okay.
Ito.
First is property acquired during the marriage by gratuitous title by either of the spouses. And of course, the fruits as well as the income coming from that property. Okay? Unless the donor or the grantor expressly provided that the property shall form part of the community property.
Maganda yung term gratuitous title. Ano ba ibig sabihin niya, Attorney Ramon?
Yeah, gratuitous title, ibig sabihin na-receive nung either of the spouses nang walang binabayaran.
So parang jackpot.
Parang
Jackpot,
ganun.
okay.
So, ano ba yung usual na gratuitous title? Like, ibinigay,
Donation.
dinonate. Yan. Or, ano ba, minana. Diba? Wala siyang ginagawa, just binigay lang sa kanya or na-receive niya lang. No? That's gratuitous title.
So labas yan.
Yes.
Dun sa lamesa.
Yes.
Nagkakaroon ng mini table dito. Okay.
So, kuwari, kinasal sila, everything nasa lamesa, like in our example, no? Pero merong nag-donate ng property sa one of the spouses. The general rule is that is not included, Attorney Erwin. Okay? That is not included dun sa absolute community nila.
So if I may connect this to our question for this episode, mukhang ito yung sagot sa tanong niya.
Yes. Now, so if the property regime of V and her husband is ACP, that would mean excluded yung idodonate ni father. Just a side note pala, I forgot to mention. The ACP, it became the default between spouses, property regime between spouses, when the family code was enacted. No? So that's 1986. No? When that was enacted, naging default is ACP. But when my parents were married, so before 1986, the default na property regime was the conjugal partnership of gains. Okay, so just a little fact that you, in case you're interested.
Trivia.
Yeah, trivia. But I assume let's say V is around our age, then kinasal siya after 1986. Then ang automatic nilang and wala siyang, let's say wala siyang prenup or marriage settlement, ang automatic nilang property regime ng kanyang asawa ay ACP, in which case share sila sa lahat. And if ACP ang property regime nila, anything that is donated to V excluded from the ACP because of this provision in our or this exclusion under the family code.
That's good to know, Attorney Ramon. May iba pa bang exclusion sa APG?
ACP.
ACP.
Yeah, meron pa. Of course, property for personal and exclusive use of either spouse, except jewelry.
Personal use.
Kung nga yung brief ni husband, toothbrush. Siguro naman kanya niya. Although I know of couples who share toothbrushes, no?
Ew.
Ew, di ba? But yung mga for personal or exclusive use of either of the spouses, this is excluded also from the from the yung roll-on ni wife. Kanya lang yun, di ba?
Okay.
Right. Another exclusion from the ACP is property acquired before the marriage by either spouse who has legitimate descendants in a former marriage. Okay, anong ibig sabihin nito?
It's complicated.
It's complicated. Hindi. So what happens, and we've had clients na who experience this, no? Kinasal si lalaki, kinasal ulit.
Okay.
Before sila kinasal, meron siyang previous marriage and meron siyang mga anak doon. No? So property na pagmamay-ari niya before siya kinasal ulit, excluded.
Kasi medyo off naman kasi parang makikinabang yung bagong spouse dun sa pinundar nung previous couple.
Yes.
Diba?
So, and it's also for the protection of yung unang mga
children.
Anak. Yes, from a previous marriage. Okay? So that is, those are the exclusions under the ACP, and I hope that's very clear to you. Now, there are also exclusions under the CPG. Ano ba yung mga exclusions na yan? Number one, property brought into the marriage as exclusive property of either spouse.
So, pwede.
Yes.
Exclusive.
Okay, exclusive property yan. Okay? Another is property acquired during the marriage by gratuitous title din. No? So, this is very similar to yung sa ACP na rin. No? Another is property acquired through redemption, barter, or exchange with property belonging to only one of the spouses. And last, property purchased using exclusive money of either spouse. Okay, so
makes
sense, no? So these are exclusions. Now, if hindi clear sa inyo yung situation and you have the conjugal partnership of gains or CPG regime, please consult your trusted lawyer and determine excluded ba to sa aming CPG. Okay? Now, what about other property regimes? Ano yung mga excluded? Ito mas simple, Attorney Erwin.
Okay.
Mas simple siya because yung exclusions, let's say in a complete separation of property or any other, will be based on kung anong nakalagay sa prenup or sa marriage settlement. Okay?
Babasahin mo na lang.
Yes. All right. So again, going back to this question, will her husband also be the owner of the donated property? The answer is no, because it is she will get it by gratuitous title. Okay. Now, what if V and her husband build on the property? So let's go to our point number 3. And it was donated to her and her sister, diba? So
especially sa title, pareho silang nandun. Walang specification na alin yung kanya.
Yes. Diba? So what happens is this will probably be a co-ownership between V and her sister. Okay. Now, since it's a co-ownership, we have to know certain things like and they want gusto nilang tayuan, no? We need to know, is the building or improvement, is it made to preserve the property or is it made to embellish it? Because the rules, there will be considerations there. And for whose benefit will the building or improvement be? Para, I would think na kaya nila tatayuan yun because it's for their benefit, si V and her husband. Diba? So we need to know that. And once we know that, we need to point out that generally in a co-ownership between V and her sister, the consent of the other owner will be needed. Okay, now if the other owner does not consent to this, mahirapan tayo. No, there might be legal implications there. So what can V do? Well, she can move for yung hiwalayin na lang yung property kung kaya naman, no? So para very clear kung ano yung boundaries between yung properties.
And then pag nahiwalay na yan, she can do whatever she wants. Sa side niya.
Oo. So
Another thing is, ito naman, pwedeng mag-usap sila. Baka naman kasi pwedeng may common building.
Right.
Diba? Gusto ko may parang rest house dyan na may swimming pool. Hati tayo, ate.
Yeah.
Diba?
Exactly. So just since it's a co-ownership, V, you're going to need to really talk to your sister and see how best to create that building that you want to make. Or the both of you can go consult your lawyer and see how to do it. All right. So we've talked about a lot of things today, Attorney Erwin. Would you mind doing a quick recap?
First off, we discussed the different property regimes and nadaanan na ninyo yung dinaanan namin during law school. ACP, CPG, separate property, all of those have been discussed. Next, we talked about the stuff that are excluded in each of these property regimes. And finally, we talked about can they build?
And our answer is, mag-usap muna kayo ng sister mo. Alright? And then you consult your lawyer. For most of you, this video was more than enough. And if it makes your life easier, then you're welcome. But there are those of you who will watch this video and end up asking more questions like, Attorney, what are the steps to transferring properties legally? What do I need to know before I transfer properties? Now, if that's you, then we invite you to check out our Transferring Land in the Philippines mini workshop. So it's a mini workshop that teaches Filipinos the basic modes of transferring land and real properties in the Philippines. It provides the pros and cons of each mode, as well as the steps and procedures so that you eliminate your confusion and successfully navigate the whole process. Now, to find out more, go to info.legalguide.ph/land to learn more.
To add to that, people say that our show seems to read what's in their minds and answers them. Well, that's because we base our show on submitted questions from our viewers. Tell us what you want us to talk about by going to www.legalguide.ph and click the Submit Topic button. If you want to get a shout out in our show, please give us feedback at info.legalguide.ph/feedback so we can read what you found helpful and acknowledge you properly. Last, if you feel we've earned a good rating, please give us a like and subscribe because it gives us feedback and it notifies you about upcoming videos.
And one last thing, guys, the law allows us to have many different ways of setting up our property relations with our spouses. We have the absolute community of property, like we discussed, all the way up to complete separation of property. Guys, it's already the 2020s. It's now very much okay to have this property arrangement conversation with your partner even before you get married. In this day and age, practicality outweighs outmoded notions of sentimentality. Let's use the law and the options it gives us. Consult your trusted legal professional and see what's available. So wasn't that simple? Now go make better choices.